like the full hair live streams as much anymore, just because it took me a while to get back into wanting to do live streams. First off, it takes me a long time to get around to doing my hair, because some people are just like rocket fast, like when they start doing their hair. But me, I like to take my time and combing it out and detangling and whatnot. I don't like to rush it up. I hate being rushed, you know. You know, I don't like things being like rushed, so I like to take my time. So in the thought process of taking your time, it just makes it so much easier when you go to braid your hair. You don't have to worry so much about like various issues. I don't know, just things that might. And somebody recently said, "Oh, did you cut your hair?" I didn't cut my hair, I trimmed my hair. But if you see, my hair is still upper calf length. I haven't posted that video yet, just because with all the different things going on, I have been trying to post some content to my second channel a little bit more. You could watch if you're interested. I did an interview with Kate Gladstone about handwriting. Like, I've been trying some other things recently with my old channel that never really took off. That has, you know, it has a few subscribers, maybe 1,400. It's just not as big as this channel. So if you ever want to see like other things I do post on there sometimes. I also do live streams with Aya Katz. And yesterday I kind of did a talk, which is my thinking talk, where I talk about social issues and like current events and history. And yeah, sometimes I do that when I do my hair, because I can't help it. I was a history major. It's never gonna leave me. Like, and I have a social conscience. I really do. It's just over time it evolved into doing it my own way. And one thing, okay, that I think is really good, that I highly recommend, like, and my sister, I think she kind of got this too, is that you need to cut down your news consumption, whether it be CNN or Fox. Don't watch like the TV news so much. Read news articles maybe, but have a minimum set. Like, be more investigative. Maybe look for some foreign, like, local journalism. Like, if I want to know what's happening in Afghanistan right now, I'm going to look up, like, things, like, even on social media that people are posting about what's happening, like, the experience of people there. Like, I think you're going to get more than if you just went off, like, whatever the headlines are telling you. I mean, it doesn't look good, but I have some thoughts about that, too. Look, it was never going to be good if we left. Was it ever going to be good? Because we shouldn't have been there. And I know it sounds horrible. I don't want their country to have problems. It's really, really sad. But if you read about the history of Afghanistan, you should read the book The Kite Runner. It'll give you some idea about how Afghanistan has had their history, like, since like 1979. They have been occupied by foreign forces, and this is where the problem started, okay? So, going back, there was a time, I don't know if younger people know about this, there was a time that the U.S. supported the Taliban. Is that surprising to you? Well, if you read history, it wouldn't be. So, in 1979, the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan. Before that, Afghanistan was actually just this beautiful country that was very up and coming, very cosmopolitan. Like, Kabul actually had, it had like universities, it had like working women that were going to college. Like, if you look it up, like videos of Afghanistan in the 60s and 70s, like they still had issues in the countryside, but there were people that were advancing, like just like in Iran. So what happened in 1979 was the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan, okay? And the U.S. at that time would sometimes, I love being an American, I'm pro-America, but sometimes I don't always agree with the policies of our country. So one thing we have to keep in mind is the Cold War. if you grew up like at the tail end of the Cold War, or if you grew up during the Cold War, you know what I'm talking about. I think the younger generation, unless they study history, they don't really get it. So anyway, during the Cold War, you know, the U.S. wanted to try and keep communism out of different countries, and they wanted to keep it out of Vietnam, and that didn't work, obviously, because that was a failure. So when the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan, the U.S. didn't want the Soviet presence there, so they started actually supporting these warlords in the countryside who ended up being the Taliban. I mean, they didn't know at the time that they were going to become this militant group, but yeah, they got a lot of American and British support that kind of helped them build up their infrastructure to become what they were. And yes, the Taliban was horrible, and they were very oppressive to women and all these different things. So I know that there was a need at one time, like everybody thought we should go into Afghanistan, but I wasn't really keen on that because we were there for 20 years, and look, I know people don't really like the fact that the U.S. was more isolationist before World War II, but I think we took it to the other end of the spectrum, and we couldn't stay in Afghanistan forever, okay? Maybe they could have had a better exit strategy, and I don't even agree with Biden on everything, but if you're hating on him right now because the exit strategy wasn't very good, I don't know how you leave a country that has just been propped up by a foreign power for years without expecting some chaos. And he was kind of right there. Like, I'm not always pro-Biden, but in this case, I'm like, well, eventually somebody has to leave. Whoever was going to leave, there was going to be chaos. And we knew the Taliban was just waiting for that moment. And we can't always be intervening in other countries and their government. And there's a lot of other problems, too. Nobody looks at Pakistan. Like, Pakistan is an ally with the U.S., but it's well known that where did they find Osama bin Laden? He was hiding in Pakistan, okay? So if you look at what's been going on in Pakistan, like there are professors, they said that sometimes they're scared of their own students. Like this one nuclear physicist professor said he didn't trust some of his students because he thought they might be in militant groups. And he was very, perplexed about why women started wearing the niqab, which was really, some women would wear the hijab in Pakistan, but there was just this beginning radicalization within the country, because you have, just like within Christianity, right? Christianity has these problems too. Islam also has groups of people that are militant. Christianity had these problems. Like, look at the history of Christianity and the Crusades and all the religious wars. Like, Europe was torn apart up until, I would say, on and off, up until the end of World War II. This is actually a very unique time in European history, since 1945, to be somewhat at peace. But, it took a really costly, big, horrible war for that to happen. And I don't like what's happening in the Middle East, or Afghanistan is actually not the Middle East, it's Central Asia. It's very sad, but I guess this is what you have to ask yourself. Like, how long were we going to stay in Afghanistan? We were still sending troops over there. Now they're sending more troops over there to try and stabilize the situation. I know people think that they have the answers, but look, anytime you get involved in another country's politics, when you decide to leave, it could be fine or there could be chaos. It depends on what the dynamic is in the country. So basically what's happening in Afghanistan is what was always going to happen if the foreign occupying power, I know the U.S. doesn't want to say they have an empire, but they just don't have one in name. Like, this is something actually British people have talked about. They said it's funny how America doesn't admit that they've had their own empire, because we have had our own empire. You don't think occupation of other countries and propping up a dictator is a form of empire? It definitely is. We might not directly be ruling those countries, but we have a lot of influence in those countries. And yes, I want Afghanistan to have a good future and not have these issues, but it's very problematic. How long do we stay in another country? And it also becomes more problematic because we have a lot of debt in our own country. How do we keep supporting our military forces being overseas all the time in so many different locations? Basically, I think we need to scale back in many different places where we have. And look, my dad was in the military. I'm not anti-military. I just don't think that's a good policy long term. Like, we can't be in every country for an eternity. Eventually, other countries have to sort out their problems. It's really not good. It might seem like it's not being handled well, but I want to tell you, it doesn't matter which president was going to withdraw, that problem would have happened. And I know they're like, well, we could have handled this better. Do you know that? Do you even know anything about Afghanistan? Have you studied the history of Afghanistan since 1979? The problems began when the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan. They were much better off when they were not being occupied by foreign powers. And yes, you did have some people that were becoming, more educated, and that was great. But a lot of people in the countryside, they were better off when they were just left to themselves and they didn't have like all these issues. And when you have somebody come in and take over your country, it's going to create a vacuum and there's going to be warlords, and it's very disconcerting, and there's no simple answer. And I don't think anybody can really say, well, it could have been handled better, we could do this better and that. Do they really know that? Basically, you would have to stay in the country much longer and not withdraw. Okay? So, yeah, you can't expect it to be beautiful when you leave a country that you have been propping up. So basically, just so you know, if you're very astute in what you're seeing, any stability that was in Afghanistan was because a foreign power was falsely propping them up. That wasn't because of something that they were doing on their own. And eventually, if you are the people in that country, like, I really hate the Taliban, I don't like them, but there's going to be a lot of people that are going to rally around them because you have a foreign occupying power, okay? And what do you think happens? Like, do you think a lot of people are going to want to get out? Yes, you're seeing a lot of people trying to get out. They're scared. Yeah, I do think that's why, okay, when I see things like this is why I'm so pro-open borders, because I think it's so stupid that we don't give people who are not wanting to be, like, militants, who want to live a good life, like, that we make it so hard for people to immigrate places. Like, we should give those people chances, Like, I'm just saying. So, I think they probably need to figure out better ways to evacuate people, but they don't have control of the country right now. So that's what happened. And you could say they could have planned it better, but I don't know. I don't think anybody withdrawing would have had a good result. I know some people are like, oh yes, they would have. So-and-so would have had a good result. That person would have had a great result, but you don't know. Do you know that? Like, you would have to, it's hard to say. I mean, we can theorize. Maybe Obama would have handled it better than Trump or Biden. I'm not a fan of Biden. But to be fair with Biden, I don't think that the result would have been that much better. I just don't. Yes, Trump and Biden are not articulate. I think having an articulate president is a little bit more savvy helps in a lot of foreign affairs cases. It's definitely a bonus. But it's not going to completely change the result. Like, you're still going to have chaos ensuing because basically this group, the Taliban, has been waiting. They've been poised. And maybe we need to look at Pakistan, like everybody's been saying for years. Pakistan has, even though they're our ally, there's a lot of militant groups that just kind of go around freely there, and we don't really question it. I mean, we do to some degree. But why don't we question, and there's just been a lot of issues, like with Pakistan attacking India, and then China attacking India's border, things that we don't talk about, but at the end of the day, this is politics of that region. And my philosophy is we cannot forever, as Americans, we can't forever be in another country trying to stabilize them. Eventually, that country needs to come together and figure out a way. I don't think people really love the Taliban, and I know they're scared of the Taliban, but maybe this is a moment for, I know people probably don't agree with my opinion, but for Afghani people to come together and find a way to get rid of the Taliban once and for all. And that might be hard for them, and it wouldn't be good. It's hard to say, but I do think for all the people that want to get out, let's find a better way to get them out quickly and just get them out. More open borders, people stop all this requirements for visas. If people don't want to be in a place where there's radicalization and they want to live a good life, give them a chance to live a good life somewhere else. Let them get out. That's why I'm pro open borders, okay? That's why. Because of things like this. Think about it for a second. Thanks for watching.